Hello YouTube, it's been a while since I made a guide on Musa or Dosa, so we're back at it boys. This is going to be the 2025 edition and we're gonna make a series of informational videos for you guys since a lot of you have been asking me for info and I've been kinda lazy. I recently quit the red life, so I thought that this was a perfect time to start getting into not being washed up and just revisiting all the setups that I used to have and trying to perfect them. So let's get into it. To start off with, we're gonna go with the standard PVE set that I use. We use pretty much everything the same as we used to, but there's a couple different changes, mainly 2 different crystals that we now have. Anyways, we go with 2 brutal decimations, we go with the standard 4 set of Macalods, we do 2 accurate crystals for the attack speed. Now we have the 2 new crystals. These are precise destruction crystals. They have a tad bit more damage compared to the red fangs or the AP crystals that we used to use, so these are best in slot now. We go with a 2 set of corrupt magic crystals for the critical hit damage. We do 2 rebellious crystals and a gyrant tier. And we top it off with a Stalwart Fortitude Crystal. This is also a new one. It basically has the same stats as the other AP crystals, but it has a bit more damage reduction and knockdown resistance. For the Karazad update, we simply go with full all AP Jin Dawn crystals. If you don't have Jins, you can go to the market and buy the Wan or Bond versions for a lot cheaper, or go to the Honglim base and grind them. Now if you want to grind spots that require resistance, for example Crescent Shrine right now where I'm at, then this is basically going to be the best in slot build for you. We go with 2 brutal decimation crystals again. Instead of the 4 set of Macalods, we go with a 2 set of Macalods, and then we put in the 2 extra slots for knockdown resistance, the adamantine crystals in particular. And we do the same basic setup as we have for the general PvE build. 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 rebellious, 1 gyrant tier, and the Stalwart Fortitude Crystal to cap out the resistance. That's basically all that there is as a difference for the resist build that I run, and we also obviously go with the same all AP Jin Dawn crystals at the bottom. Now moving on to more uncapped damage for PvP, we go with the human damage build like this. This is my go-to build for maximum damage output on people that have a lot of damage reduction basically. I use this build currently for uncapped node wars as well. So yeah, let's get into it. We start off with the 2 set of corrupt magic crystals for the critical hit damage. We go with a Bongwang tier because this is the best crystal in the primordial group that gives you maximum damage. We keep the good old Elkers for the ignore resistance as well as some accuracy boost. Instead of using the good old Jin Vipers, we go with the red Viper crystals for the human damage. And a lot of these crystals basically are going to be human damage related. The red battlefield crystal Karme, human damage. We go with 2 red spirit crystals for the human damage. We go with 2 Olocus crystals for the attack speed and the human damage. And then we do 2 set of ignore knockdown res, as ignoring knockdown resistance is very important as a Musa player. And then we end it with 2 max HP crystals of honor. For the Karazad build, we basically go all AP as well, but I personally use 1 accuracy Jin Dawn crystal. This is highly dependent on your opponent. If you require more accuracy, then you would swap this Jin Dawn out with another accuracy Jin Dawn crystal, for example. For endgame PvP, I feel like it's important to have swaps on the go for all scenarios, so it highly depends on who you're fighting, but this is basically the set that I would use for general PvP and node wars. Now moving on to a more damage reduction focused build, I go with a build like this. We keep a lot of the human damage crystals as we have in our human damage build, but we swap out a couple things and add some DR. Instead of the Bongwang crystal, we use the Heite for more DR and evasion. We use bitterness frozen crystals for the damage reduction as well. And that basically is the difference. In some certain scenarios, you may find yourself even wanting to add even more damage reduction, but this is basically as far as I would take it, to have a mix of damage and DR. To finish off uncapped builds, I have an Evasion build. This is how my Evasion build looks like. It looks a bit more OG because of the Whom crystals that we used to use. Start off with 2 Elker crystals for the accuracy. We use a 2 set of Jin Magic Crystal Harfia for the all evasion rate. This will add 40 evasion into the build. We do a 4 set of Whoms for the damage reduction and the evasion. We keep our Olocus crystals because attack speed is important. We use only 1 ignore knockdown resistance crystal. We use a Hate crystal for the evasion, a 2 set of frozen bitterness for the evasion, and we top it off with the max HP crystals again. I usually run around with a full set of all AP Jindan crystals because combined with my Centaur belt and other evasion items, I already sit at over 1400 evasion during these fights. 1400 evasion is not enough in endgame PvP though, which is why I am swapping to damage reduction. But for anybody that wants to use evasion, this is kind of the crystal build that I would go for. If you want to stack even more evasion, then instead of these all AP Jindan crystals, you would put the evasion alternative. I don't have any though right now, so I can't show you to put one in. Now moving on to capped content, let's go with the tier 1 build. This is basically the best in slot tier 1 build that I find myself using. I don't really do tier 1 node wars anymore, but this is what is highly recommended as a Musa and Dosa and basically everyone. Start off with a double set of Olocus crystals as usual for the attack speed. We use a Gyrant tier. We use a 2 set of 1 magic crystal Harfias for the HP recovery so that we can recover health on the go faster. We go with 2 Jin History crystals. These are for the stamina boost. This adds 600 max stamina to our fights, which is great. That allows us to dash even more. We do 2 absorption crystals to recover even more HP during PvP. 2 corrupt crystals for the critical hit damage because this is not capped even in capped content. To gain even more attack speed, we use 2 glorious Acrite crystals. 2 brutal decimation crystals for the back attack and mob damage, which applies to PvP in tier 1s, and 1 Elker crystal for ignore resistance. The bottom part with the Charizard update is highly dependent on how much Black Spirit Rage you want. I personally don't need 200% as a Musa player, but as a Dosa player, for example, doing your 200% in succession is actually pretty decent, I would say. So capping out at 200% Rage is actually quite recommended. I personally go with just 3 1 Black Spirit Rage crystals because they're cheap and convenient to put in, and I end the build with just adding an all AP and an accuracy crystal, but these don't really matter that much. Now for the last build, tier 2 node wars. These are what I do quite often as well as uncapped nowadays. The build looks like this. We start off with 2 Olocus glorious crystals for the attack speed. We use a Hate tier instead of a Gyrant tier. Use 2 rebellious crystals, 1 ignore knockdown resistance crystal, 2 max HP crystals, 2 corrupt crystals for the crit damage as usual, 4 set of Whoms, which is the biggest difference, and 2 Elker crystals for the ignore resistance. The bottom layer of the Charizard crystals is exactly the same as tier 1s. You can use as many Black Spirit Rage recovery ones as you wish. And that's about it. Those are the best in slot crystals that I currently use for all types of content that I do. Hope you found this information useful, and I tried to make it as quick as possible, but I'm a slow talker, so I apologize. As always, if you have any questions, come hop into our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Carl with 2 A's. Have a good one guys, and I will get to working on the next set of guides.